about how I
Yes, go ahead.
heat these up?
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever I make pancakes, I cook them on these two griddles. And I usually, when I have a large crowd, I'll have the oven on warm, and so everyone can sit down together, I'll put them in the oven to hold on plates, sometimes covered with a little lid. But because I've got my sourdough bread baking this morning, yes, there it is down there in the roaster. Oh, look at Jim's.
And I cooked. Oh, that's Jim's bacon. Oops.
Candid moment.
We have dead bacon in the oven.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway.
And what temperature do you keep it warm on?
Well, I've got a warm setting on my stove, but it would be below 200
okay.
to 180, something like that.
Okay.
But not too long, because you don't want them to dry out.
Okay.
So I heat up. You want these at about a medium-low or low-medium, just below medium, probably. On mine, this one has to be at about a 3, and this one I do on 2.8 or 2.6, 2.8 or 2.6 of 9. So it's, it's fairly low temperature. You just don't want to cook them too fast because they'll burn. That one's about ready. This one, now I turned this on high to get it hot and then turned it down. But Terry worries about me burning down the house, and so I'm trying to learn to just turn it to where I want it to be and wait. And that's really hard. But this one is ready. I keep this on hand, which is just water. Also, this works really well to cool something down if I can get it to pump. This spray, well, if it would spray, it would act really well at cooling it down. So this is my regulator, or in addition to this.
Temperature control in a bottle.
Temperature control in a bottle. I use it all the time. And I also use it to fry my eggs with.
Because?
Because I don't want to have to turn them over. So when I put my eggs on, and when they get just a little bit cooked, then I put water all around them and put a lid over them. And it's kind of a combination fried and poached egg. So you end up with a combination fried and poached egg. I call it a froached egg. Rarely I call it that. Anyway, these are my old standbys for cooking pancakes. You just can't beat cast iron, and with the low sides, the griddleness of it makes it so it's really easy. Okay, so mixing up the pancakes. These are whole wheat pancakes. I started doing whole wheat pancakes when we discovered all the wheat we had stored for emergency, in our emergency food supply, had it for about 30 years, maybe 40 years. And so we decided we would eat it, and when we were done, we would die. But it's been 15 years. And the grinder broke, so I just started buying whole wheat. But it's 100% whole wheat. And here's my formula. For every 2 people, you use 1 cup of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, pinch of salt, about oh, a fourth cup of oil and milk. And I think it's about 1 to 1 with the flour, but I'm not sure. I just pour it in until it's right, until it's pancake consistency. And if it's too thin, that's all right. If it's too thick, you need to thin it. Okay, so here we go. And I just use a regular old tablespoon to measure. There's my, now I've got 2 cups, because we got 4 people. I got 2 cups, and hang on. Let me make sure these don't get too hot. So there's 1 for the 1 cup. I've got 2 cups of flour. So I want 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 2 pinches, and these are 4-finger pinches of salt. I like this little whisk. I've got some that are bigger, but they've got more tines, and I don't like the way they do. So I like this little kind of single tine one. If I had a bigger one, I would be happy. But since I don't, I use this one. So I mix the salt and flour and baking powder together, and then I pour in, you know, I think it's about a 1/4 cup per cup of flour, but that much. And then for each cup, I use 2 eggs. With my white flour pancakes, I just use 1 egg. And I learned by reading on the internet, you can't believe everything you read on the internet, but I learned that if you crack an egg on a flat surface, you'll get a better break. So I used to do it on the edge of the bowl. Hang on, I'm keeping these at the right temperature. Okay, break my eggs and pour in the milk. Let's see what that does for us. I can sure smell that bacon in the oven. And I'm scraping the bottom, and it's a little thick, just a tiny bit thick. So I'm going to put in just a tad more milk. And let's see if we can get it the right consistency. And as it sits on the counter, it'll thicken up. So you may need to add more milk. I think that's about right. So let's see what we can do there with cooking them.
Well, we're going again.
So when I'm going to cook, these have a good temper on them, but I give them a spritz of spray grease and wipe it off, because I'm not frying these. You know, I just want them to cook on the stove top. And you'll notice that, you know, I've got cooked on grease around here. These have been used for a lot of years, and people keep coming in wanting to take that off, and I don't let them. Okay, now this is sat here and got just a little too thick.
Dip it so that we can see.
It's just a little too thick. Just needs, you know, it's not going to flow out the way it needs to be. So that's about right.
Okay, do it again, but it's there. Okay.
Okay, do you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to hear it cooking lots. When you want to hear just a little bit of a when you put it down. This one isn't hot enough. So I'm going to put that up to, it was down on 2.2, so. Yeah, so the bubbles need to start coming about that time, and bubble, bubble, bubble. See, this one is starting now to bubble. And there's just a lot of standing around waiting when you're doing pancakes, but you can't get too involved in something else because you need to be able to turn them when the time comes. Now it's starting to, around here, around the edge, you can see it's starting to set up. It needs to be more set up than that before you turn it. You don't want to turn it too quickly because it'll be blonde. And you don't want a blonde pancake. See, it's rising up now, getting fluffy. I might turn that one up to 3. Okay, now I'm starting to get little bubbles that have burst around the edges. Let's try turning that one. Yes.
Bam. Nice.
This one's starting to get its little bubbles around the edge that are you know, staying. These will disappear, and you don't want to wait until they're all like these edge ones to turn it, because it'll then, if it's not too dark, it'll be too brown. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this one, since my oven is in use, I'm going to set that on where I've been keeping the bacon. Now you don't have to leave it too long on the other side, because because it'll dry out. Just enough to, okay, and I'm just going to stick that over those. Okay, so this is still all right. What did I do with my, I don't have to, probably don't have to do this, because they've got a good enough temper on them. I'll just do it this one more time, and then the rest of them I'll just cook without anything on them, and they won't stick. See, that one didn't sizzle quite right when I put it down, which may mean that this one is too hot. I'll turn it down just a bit. The heat of the pans is really important. Okay, so that's starting to bubble, etc., etc., etc. But it's really nice to be able to be set up so that you can just serve them, you know, as people come, if you're serving a crowd, people come in and eat. Now, if it's just Daryl and I, then I can hold his just like this and cook mine and then serve, and we're done. But if I'm cooking for 10, and if I'm cooking for 10, I put it in batches like this, because you don't want to get too big a batch, because number one, beating it is hard, and for number two, it'll sit there and get too thick. And as you add milk and beat it, then it's already bubbled some. and you lose your leavening. So it's best to not do it more than 2 cups at a time. Okay, so I think we're done.